Okay, in this episode, I want to talk about prefixes for verbs of motion. And we're going to look at directional prefixes. So these are not po, that one's not a directional prefix. And when you have directional prefixes, there are going to be some changes to the root verb. So let's look at that first. So it is going to change with a prefix. It's going to change to, right? So you'll end up with a prefix, it looking something like pri-ti or oi-ti. Ехать, that is going to require a little change. Basically, if the prefix ends in a consonant, you have to insert a hard sign between the prefix and the root verb. So the prefixes that we're going to look at that end in a consonant are v, it starts and ends with a consonant, ot, and pod. So if you want to say any of these prefixes with yechit, you have to add that stop sign. So that hard sign, yechit, or ot, yechit, or pod, yechit. That's pretty clear. And then yestit changes a whole bunch. It changes to yejat if you use it with any directional prefix. So for example, приезжать, уезжать. And then it, like its brother yechit, needs this hard sign when you're dealing with prefixes that end in a consonant. So we're going to have pod, hard sign, yejat, and ot, yejat. So just keep those in mind now that we're going to look at prefixes, so that your spelling and pronunciation's good to go. Okay, so these are all directional prefixes, and they're the ones that are covered in the book, plus one extra that I think is pretty useful. And they're very common, and they in some ways make verbs of motion tricky, right? Because there's all these different ways to say whatever, where you're going and how you're getting there. But they also make it easier because they're so specific. So there's a certain prefix that you use depending on what you want to say. So I've grouped them with their opposites when they have opposites, and that helps to keep them in your brain. Alright, so we'll look at the prefix, and then we'll look at what prepositions it requires, and then look at a couple samples. So pri means to come or arrive, right? So showing up at this block. And it uses the prepositions v, which we're quite familiar with, plus accusative, na plus accusative, and ka plus dative. And remember, ka is used when we're talking about going to a person. Let's say, я пришел на работу. So I arrived at work, if I were a guy. Or we can say, рейс прилетает в Лондон в часов. Right, so the flight will arrives in London at 6 o'clock. Or я пришел к врачу. Right, I've arrived at the doctor's. So this is when you're just announcing your arrival, right? Or you're talking about your arrival, or when you've just come somewhere. The opposite of pri is u, and u means obviously to leave or to depart. So we can talk about when the plane departs, or we can talk about leaving work. And we're going to use the prepositions that are the opposite of v and na and ka. And these all require the genitive case, and they are is plus genitive, which is the opposite of v, s plus genitive, and ot plus genitive. Я ушел с работы. Right, so I've left work. Or самолет улетел. So the plane has departed. It took off. Alright, so now v and v are slightly different from pri and u in that it's entrance into something. So you not only just arrived, but now you're going into the building or whatever it is, or you're coming out of, right? So v is in or entrance. So you walk up to a door, you open the door, and you step inside. So that's v, right? And we use the preposition v plus accusative. An easy example, я вошел в дом. So I opened the door, I walked in, and I walked into the house. And let's see, we notice here this o, and it basically is breaking up that cluster, so it's not všol, it's vошел в дом. Or now I open the door and I walk out of the house, so v is out or exit. So, and you use is plus genitive, right? Because that's the opposite of v. Я вышел из дома. Or you can exit out onto something, right? So na or v plus accusative. You could also use those with v, right? Let's say you're down in the subway, you get off, you walk up all those stairs, and you exit out onto the street. So я вышел на улицу. So I exited out onto the street. So pro is another prefix, and this one doesn't have an opposite, but it does have quite a few different meanings. So it means, in this case, through, or sort of across, and you use the preposition через plus the accusative case. So, for example, я прошел через парк. So I'm on my way home and I took a shortcut and I walked through the park, right? So through or across the park. We also can use pro to mean under, and we use the preposition pod plus the instrumental case. Я прошел под мостом. So I walked, so this is bridge. So I walked under the bridge, and here's our instrumental case ending. So я прошел под мостом. Or you could walk under rain. Я прошел под дождем. Or we can use the prefix pro when we're talking about movement that's past something. And then we use the preposition mimo plus genitive. So let's say you are walking home from school and you walk past your friend's house, right? You don't stop, you don't change your course or anything, you just walk by it. Yeah. Прошел мимо дома. So I walked by the house. Alright, next, this is another one that's not paired. Pera. And this is motion across, like across, to cross the street, or sort of to move, right? Like I moved to Nebraska. So we're going to use через plus the accusative case. So она перешла через улицу. Or if our whole class, you know, we have to move to a new auditorium. Мы перешли в другую аудиторию. And also if you say that you just moved, you know, to an entirely different state or to a different town. Мы переехали в другой город. Right? We moved to a new town. So that's пере. And as you can see, we also can use в and на. Right? В другой город, в другую аудиторию. Alright, here we have another paired set, pod, which means to come up to or approach. So this isn't the same as arriving, but this is like, you know, driving up to the entrance of the hotel or walking up to the teacher's desk. And then once you're there, you could say, hello, I've arrived. But for now, you're just approaching. Or its opposite, which is to move away from something, right? So if you're driving away from the entrance to the hotel, or you're walking away from someone who was just mean to you, right? So if we're approaching, we use the preposition к and dative. Я подошел к окну. So I walked up to the window and looked out. I didn't do anything, you know, through the window, and I didn't announce my arrival. I just walked up to the window. I heard a noise outside, so I walked up to the window. And then away from is от plus genitive, which is the opposite of к. So I look out the window, there's nothing there, it's pretty boring, so I decided я отошел от окна. Right, so I walked away from the window. You can also use от to describe like a train leaving the platform, right? Поезд отходит в 9 часов. Okay, and then this is another one that doesn't have a pair, and this is do, and this prefix means to reach a goal, like this, money bags, or to make it somewhere. And we use the preposition do also, plus the genitive case. So you would use this to say, you know, that let's say you want to catch your favorite TV show and you got to race home, and you could say, I made it home in time. So я дошел до дома за полчаса. So я дошел до дома за полчаса. Right? So I made it home in half an hour. You reached your goal. So it's not just that you've arrived or that you are approaching your home, but you made it. Also, your parents probably ask when you leave, hey, call me when you make it home, you know? So I want to know that the trip was all right. Позвони мне, когда доедешь до дома. So, call me when you make it home. And then this prefix isn't in your book yet, but I think it's pretty useful. And it's also one of these directional prefixes. And this is za, and it means to drop in or make a short stop. And it comes with a bunch of prepositions. We've got va, na plus accusative. We have ka plus dative, like when we're going to a person. And we have za plus the instrumental. So let's look at some examples. So let's say you just run out to the shop and you're coming back. You're not going for very long. You're not going to do your big, long weekly trip. You just need some more milk. So, я зашел в магазин. Or you want to drop in at a friend's, you're walking by, you just decide, hey, I'm going to drop by. So я зашел к другу. Or you could be dropping by to pick him up. And then za we use if you're running out, you know, to get a specific item. So I ran out to the store and I bought some bread, but it wasn't a long trip, right? Я зашел за хлебом. So there's that instrumental ending. You could also use this to invite someone to stop by. You know, whenever you're in the neighborhood, just feel free to stop by. So you would say, заходите к нам. And that's just a polite invitation. So these are the prefixes, or really common prefixes for verbs of motion. And the more you use them and just the more you engage with the language, the more familiar they'll become, and some will start to just sound right. And for now, you just need to memorize.